Give us the details of your plan, what you're proposing, how you're going to get it done.
What we recognize is that we are not going to see full economic recovery until we are out of the health crisis. And we asked the question, what would it take to vaccinate the world population by the end of this year at the level of 40% and by mid-next year at the level of 60%, that would bring that acceleration of recovery everywhere? And the answer is, one, we need to inject upfront financing in COVAX. This is the facility that helps developing countries to bring vaccines to their people. We have to fund it now, not make commitments for some future. We have to get countries with excess vaccines to make now a commitment to release what they don't need for their own people, so it can be integrated in vaccination plans in the developing world. Very important, recognize that there may be problems down the road with new mutations and booster shots necessary, so plan to overproduce, expand production capacity and diversify this production capacity, allow the flow of materials and vaccines to be freely executed around the world. Last but not least, meanwhile, while we are boosting vaccinations, make sure that developing countries can test and trace COVID cases and that they can prepare for vaccinations, for the vaccines when they arrive. So when we look at these three blocks, step up support for developing countries now with money and excess doses, boost production capacity and overshoot so we can cover the world more effectively, and prepare developing countries to receive the vaccines and to protect their people. Meanwhile, we came up with a price tag of $50 billion, of which we believe $35 billion should be grants. These are poor countries, many of them, they need help. $15 billion domestically funded or funded in concessional finance. Now, the most important message of our proposal is a coordinated effort upfront can bring enormous benefits. Between now and 25, the world economy can benefit $9 trillion if we accelerate the exit from the pandemic, of which 60% will go to the developing world, 40% to rich countries. And for those who may be still hesitant, is this a good plan? Developed, advanced economies, rich countries, can collect $1 trillion in extra budgetary revenues through taxes because we accelerate the recovery everywhere. And that is, at this point of time, the best use of public money one can think of.
Well, that's an attractive return on investment, no matter what you say about it. But Madam Georgieva, several times in that answer you said now. And goodness knows, as we watch what's happening in India, watch what's happening in Brazil, it has to be now. We don't have any time to wait. Can you get the $50 billion now? How long will it take to come up with that kind of money?
I got quite encouraged by the discussion at the Global Health Summit today, because we heard from many countries step-up commitments in financial terms and also in reallocating excess vaccines. And I can tell you we will continue to press through the meetings that are forthcoming, G7, G20 meetings, to make sure that it is happening now. We have been fortunate as a world in two ways. One, our scientists came up with vaccines in a record short time. Two, our central bankers and our finance authorities have provided incredibly strong fiscal and monetary support so we can go through this pandemic. What is left is this: vaccinate everybody everywhere as fast as we can. And I am optimistic that we all would see it in our own interest and that we will step up. We at the fund have been on the front line. We have provided financial lifelines to 82 countries in record short time. We will continue to do our part, but we want to see also more grant contributions, especially for the poorest countries, to come now.
Madam Georgieva, my audience and my colleagues would not forgive me if I didn't ask at least one question about special drawing rights, because we've talked before about that proposal on the table. Can you give us an update about where that is, and not only when it might be approved, assuming it does get approved, but also what plans there are for redirecting some of that from some of the wealthier countries to some of the middle range and even poorer countries?
We are advancing with the preparation of a proposal to our governors. We expect this proposal to be approved sometime by the end of August, the latest, and that would make this reserve boost in all countries of $650 billion a reality. We are also working on improving the transparency of how SDRs are being used, and as your question suggested, on how can wealthy countries who do not need these SDRs for their reserves on-lend them to countries in dire need. So far, we have actually done some of it with existing SDRs. We have boosted our concessional lending capacity by nearly $20 billion. So I'm optimistic that with the new injection of SDRs, we would have a big boost, additional boost in concessional lending to developing countries. And where the membership is many have already announced they intend to do it, both advanced economies and some emerging market economies like China. And they have expressed interest in broadly three big objectives. One, to get more investment in poverty reduction. We have seen this crisis has pushed poverty up after decades of driving it down. Two, to support countries in investing in green growth, in investing in human capital, so and doing so with attention to policy for private sector investments. In other words, what we do with these SDRs improves investment climate. And actually, some of the governments are saying, why not also to think of a way in which the SDRs can be a factor in tackling this pandemic? So if there is a shortfall, we can step up as the third line of defense: grants, long-term concessional financing, and possibly the on-lending of SDRs. We had a summit with African leaders. I was very impressed at this summit how many spoke about the importance to use the special drawing rights not only as a boost of reserves, but also as a source of on-lending. So the world comes out of this crisis faster for the benefit of everybody.